Hi, I'm Meg Major. Welcome to Grocery COVID Live. Joining me for this segment is our executive editor, John Springer, and our content manager, Kat Martin, and of course, Phil Lempert. Good morning and good afternoon to all.
Good morning, Meg.
Hi. So Phil, this week we have been told over the weekend, as well as reinforced on the media yesterday, this is not the week to be going to the grocery store. The White House Task Force Response Coordinator, Deborah Bricks, announced that and warned strongly, urging everyone to stay out of grocery stores this week to keep the curve as flat as possible and also to really ensure that we are all using the best precautions to distance from one another. Phil, what are you seeing in California?
Well, same thing here in LA. The announcement was made: stay out of grocery stores. And frankly, I have mixed feelings about it. Number one, obviously, for the industry, if everybody listens and doesn't go to a grocery store, that creates problems. But frankly, I think that the grocery industry needs a rest. I think whether it be the workers, whether it be time to stock up that toilet paper aisle, the baking goods aisle, and so on. I think maybe it's not a week, but maybe if we actually had 3 or 4 days where grocers could catch up, which is something that we haven't been able to. They haven't been able to breathe, if you would.
Yeah.
It's just been constant. I think, frankly, it would be a good thing. I also think that it would get people to use and cook a lot of the stuff that they've bought over the past 3 or 4 weeks that they have no idea what to do with. So for me, and John and Kat, you might disagree. For me, I'd like to see this happen. I think it would be good long-term for the industry to take this little break.
Yeah, Phil, I'd agree with you. And I say one way that they're doing that is a number of grocers, Southeastern grocers, Sprouts, any number of independents are going to be closed on Easter Sunday when normally they would be open. So there's one day to get it cleared up.
But John, interestingly, how about the retailers though that have gone the opposite way? Those that have been open on Easter that are closing, or those who have long been closed, such as Brookshire Grocery Company, that are going to be open. I'm also seeing staggered hours among other grocers that are just going to stay open till 3 o'clock. So those hours of operation, but I agree with you, Phil, that's going to give at least those who are closing down a moment to catch their breath.
I'd like to stick with Easter for a second.
Yeah.
With all this is happening, I think Easter Sunday this year is going to be a very strange Easter Sunday, because typically, everybody goes to their grandparents' house and you have big family gatherings. We're not going to have that, this year because of the distancing. Number one, also, no one wants to put their grandparents at risk. So are we just going to be doing virtual Easter while everybody's buying all these spiral hams? I'm going to be sitting here with a spiral ham, and Meg and Kat and John, you're going to be sitting there and we're going to be talking. I really think, and if I look at the Nielsen data, again, this week, spiral hams were the number one sales item in the meat case. I'm just wondering what is going to happen for Easter this year, because I just don't get it. I don't think that people are going to distance when it comes to Easter. And I think that that's going to create a whole new set of problems. And I think that people are getting tired of distancing and they're getting a little sloppy, certainly in the grocery stores. And
Right.
Kat, you're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Easter, I just don't know where all this food is being bought, how it's going to be consumed on Easter. It scares me.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, I did see that the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy are considered essential workers. So they will still be going out and delivering everything. So the kids will be able to eat all of the Easter candy that is appearing from store shelves.
But do you think that the kids are going to have as much fun if they have to be 6 feet apart? And are we going to have these huge family gatherings? That I think is my question, probably more than anything else.
I'm going to keep faith, Phil. I'm going to keep faith and say I've typically host Easter every year. that thing is canceled and done this year. I don't know of too many people that are planning big Easter gatherings this year, but I do agree. We'll have to wait and see. But I think that that for the most part, people ought to heed the warning to it. If they don't stay out of the grocery stores, we've got to keep the message of self-distancing going as much as possible. Kat, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I have a nephew whose birthday is at the end of April, and his mom is upset that he's going to have a birthday during this. And I'm like, you have to look at it as this is a memory. Like, remember that birthday I had during, the quarantine. So, I mean, you have to look at it a different way and kind of, I think, just make this memorable by saying it's so different. We're always going to remember, the Easter where we had to toast grandpa through Zoom,
Exactly. So Kat, I also want to ask you a question that I know you've been covering a lot, where grocers have gone, from plexiglass, from good sanitation. I was in a Ralph's just the other day where over the loudspeaker, an announcement came, okay, it's 20 minutes, time to clean the plexiglass, and talking to their employees, but obviously everybody in the store could hear it, time to clean those check stand belts, time to, wipe down the handles of the frozen food case. So what are we now seeing as the next evolution of that? With some of the biggest chains, including Walmart, what are they doing?
Well, I mean, I think it started out with the announcements, like you mentioned, to customers, also social distance, but people aren't really good at listening to directions. So stores are having to take it upon themselves to make sure people are social distancing. So what we saw over this last week was the one-way aisles. So in order to keep people, and we all know that especially center store aisles in grocery stores tend to be very narrow. So you can't really walk past each other without being within 6 feet. So a lot of companies, I first knew of it for sure from a small independent, DeChico and Sons, that's in Westchester County in New York. I'd asked him about something and he indicated that they were going to that. Then the bigger chains started. Kroger did a test. I'm not positive they're doing it chain-wide, but I know they're testing it. Hy-Vee in the Midwest is doing it chain-wide. Walmart just came out saying they're doing it chain-wide. So, this is a way to make sure people heed, those social distancing. And they're all, putting up signs in the store to say which direction to go, putting markers on the floor to hopefully, direct people in the correct way.
So a couple of things. Number one, I've seen it too. The problem that I have is, as I'm visiting stores, and I'm trying to visit, 5 to 6 stores every week to see what's going on, is
you better not be doing that this week, Phil.
No, this week I'm going to take a break. White House orders, but I was in an aisle. And there's this woman in an aisle without a face mask, without gloves, who's in the middle of the aisle with her grocery list, stopped dead and just looking for things. And I just sat and waited, and it was probably about 5 minutes that she was there. So even with the one-way aisles, which I think is an interesting idea, it all falls apart when you have somebody who's just standing in the aisle that won't move, and it just blocks up everything.
Well, you know what, Phil? When we get to the situation where we are in New York, people are not leaving the house without masks anymore. They're getting a message from the smart grocers here that are saying, look, leave your kids at home, leave your wife or husband at home, come and do the grocery shopping by yourself. You don't need to bring the whole family. Things like that. It's just common sense stuff. And really here in New York, it's really hitting hard, as you can tell by the horrifying number of deaths and hospitalizations as a result of this. So listen, people have to get the message, and hopefully they are. And we're seeing as the grocers continue to, increase their safety measures, whether it's, limiting the number of customers in the stores, which they're doing now as well,
Right.
one-way aisles, etc. Get the message, stay apart for a couple of weeks. Let's see how we are when we get out of this.
And also, there are a lot of, in addition to the one-way aisles, there are grocers out there who are also implementing the one cart, one person policy, where, you know, they're trying to avoid having those families coming in a group. So, you know, just if, you know, there's one person per cart. So, you know, don't bring the kids. If they want to take a ride, you know, bring your husband along or your wife or whoever, another adult, and have them just sit out in the car with them. While one person from the family goes in and shops.
One thing that Meg had mentioned to me, which I hadn't really thought about, and I'd love to hear everybody's opinion about it, is what's happened is the grocery store, one of the few places that are open, has become the center for entertainment, if you would. You can't go to the movies, you can't go to a ball game, but you can go to the grocery store. So, Kat, to your point, you know, leave people at home, exactly what John is saying, or leave them in the car. But that's not happening because people have this need to see and to talk to other people. So they're using the grocery store as that vehicle. Right, Meg?
That's correct. And I think it's really distressing. And I was just doing a very quick check of my news feed last night. There's people that are really complaining on social media about customers who are congregating in stores as well as with others. Teenagers, I think, are still a little bit flagrant about it in certain parts, that there's being signs that are in some stores that are also limiting groups, asking people to please just be in single groups, no groups allowed. And prior to this weekend's task force warning, was HEB's president, Scott McClellan, went out and asked Texans to all, you know, by name on media, asking all Texas families to please refrain from coming into the stores with their groups, asking to just come in single and leave the families at home. And I thought it was just really smart, because I think grocers really, the personal touch that I'm seeing also in the media commercials, with Doug McMillan from Walmart thanking all of those employees. And Hy-Vee did a beautiful spot. I mean, the personal touch of the CEOs of the grocery chains that are really asserting themselves into the discussion and asking customers personally, I think is going a lot farther than just throwing up signs on the store entries. You still see, you know, lots of signage in stores, though, asking people to limit what they're buying. So there's a lot of consumer behavior changes that still have a long way to go, I think, right now.
Yeah, and Meg, if I can add just one point to that. I mean, you know, one way that people are going to get the message is horrifying. But, you know, we wrote yesterday there were at least 4 grocery workers among the 10,000 dead in the U.S. as a result of this. And, you know, while, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean the stores are infected, but it should be, you know, the message has got to be resonating with people that they've got to take care. And let's just get through this for the next couple of weeks and see where we are.
So, John, let me just build on what you said for a second. So we see all these retailers wanting to hire hundreds of thousands of people as temporary workers. Now that we're starting to get the cases of COVID-19 of grocery workers themselves, and as you mentioned, 4 deaths, what's going to be the impact on that labor? You know, that person that might be out of work that was thinking about going to work for a grocery store for a couple weeks, or are they just going to pull back and say, wait a minute, you know, maybe it's not worth that $15 or $17 an hour to put myself at risk?
Yeah, well, for the time being, you know, I think the message is getting out there. This is a little bit of a dangerous situation. The retailers have been, you know, doing their best, I think, for the most part, to try and make sure that their, you know, employees are safe. But we've seen, you know, some of the things we talked about last week with the, you know, the worker uprisings of the sick out at Whole Foods, the issue that Amazon warehouse, the Instacart strike. We're hearing from more workers, even from some of the, you know, the big respected chains. You know, where are our masks? You know, can we get it? And part of the issue is, do the retailers have the resources to be able to even acquire them for their workers? So, again, hopefully the message that goes out there to the consumers is that, this is a serious situation. And, for the workers, listen, there's work available in the supermarkets because that's the only place to shop, right? All of the share of stomach is going there. So, but let's serve that customer, get them what they need, feed people, but let's do it in a safe way.
And let's talk a little bit about, I know one of your passions is the future of grocery. And let's talk a little bit about automation. And, with all these problems that we've been discussing, how could automation have helped and how will it help in the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, I think, that the results of, or the things that we're seeing now is down the road anyway, is going to accelerate the trends that we were seeing kind of going into this issue. So automation, which had really only begun in some stores, is really going to accelerate afterwards. And, one of the areas that we're seeing this is in e-commerce, right? There's a great demand for e-commerce right now. We've got some figures on that from some industry people that would illustrate how fast it's growing. Yet the stores, particularly if they're using their employees to pick those orders and get them out to consumers, are unable to do that fast enough to meet the demand. So where Brick Meets Click says, sales in the last 30 days, e-commerce is up by 233%. There's no telling how much bigger that would be if, you could get a delivery within 3 weeks. Here in New York, every single delivery window is socked up. So the idea is that, automation can help, micro fulfillment centers can do that 4 times faster than a person picking it, at least, right? That's going to help the volume of these stores get their e-commerce out to people, and then it's going to bring cost relief to the retailers that are incurring big expenses in order to
Hey, John, I'm going to ask you a quick question for members of our audience who may not be familiar. Can you explain really quick micro fulfillment center? Because that's sort of an emerging topic that we're certainly in our space well versed in, but I think maybe some members of our audience would be curious.
Yeah, well, listen, like 2 years ago, I didn't know the thing existed, right? What they are mini warehouses that can be assembled in a store, maybe in a back room or in an adjacent facility. And basically it uses automation to pick the orders, whether that's, shuttle type robots. There's some more advanced ones like Ocado's doing that are vertically stacking the items, and the robots will, assemble them. So you can run these machines with only a couple of employees, as long as they're, stocked up. They will assemble the bulk of the online order. Maybe they need to, manually pick some fresh items or frozen items in some of these things. And like I said, it greatly increases the speed at which you can pick these orders, and greatly reduces the cost with which they can assemble these orders, because every e-commerce order comes with the expense of doing the things that the customer coming to the store would normally do themselves.
Yeah, but you still have the problem that you can have these micro fulfillment centers or big warehouses that are automated, but you've still got the problem of getting those groceries to the consumer. And I don't know if we've figured that one out yet. I don't know if it is autonomous vehicles, if it's drones, whatever, but they could speed up everything in the warehouse, but it still comes down to human beings that, Instacart is saying they need 300,000 more people to fulfill orders.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, and automation, the self-driving vehicles are a part of that. I know Neuro's been testing that with Walmart, with Kroger, a couple of other companies out there in the autonomous vehicle space. Walmart's got a really cool test now where they're using a driverless car to move orders between stores. So then, rather than putting the labor in every store that's doing e-commerce, maybe you put it in one and then use these autonomous vehicles to get them in between the stores. And again, everywhere your grocery goes, you incur labor expenses and people to get them there. And anywhere that they can kind of take that work out and replace it with things that don't break down. And I hate to be ghoulish in this thing, but you know what? Robots don't get sick. robots, aren't going to be asking for more hours or,
Right.
higher rate. So these things are coming, and we really got to keep an eye on them.
And John, I think the thing is, when a comment like that you shared, it could be prickly or controversial for some, but ostensibly the automation will then allow the labor and the in-store employees to better serve customers and better maintain store conditions and do better things to accelerate the in-store experience and not just pick orders.
You're absolutely right about that. And a lot of the places where we're seeing automation in grocery now are areas like doing inventory checks. When things get busy, that's the first thing that they get rid of because the employees don't like doing it. It takes a long time. You've got a robot rolling up and down the aisles taking care of that stuff. Hey, that's nothing but benefit for the retailer. And to the extent that those employees can be washing the belts and cleaning the stores, stocking the items, doing the other things in customer service that people need, that's a huge benefit for automation. And that's going to become so much more pronounced, I think, as we come out.
Right. And also with those robots are also doing some of this slip and fall and safety checks, which are really super important. That's a massive important thing for retailers with their due diligence, with lawsuits, that they can actually say that they've got their store checks and their safety checks done, because a robot's not going to argue or to fudge a number and a checkbox to say that these things have been done.
Yeah.
So I want to build on something that John was talking about with e-commerce, and something that we talked a bit about last time too. As I mentioned, Nielsen is showing baking yeast, baking powder up in sales considerably. The number 1 and 2 increases for food. And also, when we talk about e-commerce, Stackline sent out a report of the top 100 fastest growing products that are being sold on e-commerce. Number 1, no surprise, disposable gloves. Number 2, bread machines. So I want to, on a personal level, ask each of you about baking. Obviously, somebody's buying all this baking yeast and all these bread machines. What's going on here? Are we going to turn into home bakers, and Bimbo and other bakers are going to have major problems?
Here in New York, it's hard to find a loaf of bread in the stores, particularly the particular one you want, right? So I think that's part of it. But I think, again, what we were talking about earlier, is people need to do things at home, and they're buying nearly 100% of their food, by the ingredient, not by meals, not by restaurants necessarily. So they've got to have to make it at home.
Yeah.
And are you baking at home, John?
My wife is. I'm not a baker.
Okay, Kat, what about you?
I have looked for baking items in the grocery store, and I can tell you those shelves are still pretty picked over. So I do have all the sugar, I do have all the flour, and I do have the eggs I need, but I have yet to bake. So I'm still eating my refrigerated cookie dough that I bought last week. So.
And Meg, are you baking?
I am not baking, but I am cooking. So I cannot do both.
So when we talk about all this cooking at home, and we've talked about this before, people are used to going out for to McDonald's or to a restaurant or whatever. Now people are cooking at home. What's going to happen after this? Are people instantly going to run out to restaurants? Are restaurants going to be out of business because people have now learned these cooking skills? What do you think?
My colleague Jonathan Mays over at our restaurant business has really been all over this crisis of what it means to restaurants. And, I don't want to quote him exactly, but I think he believes that some 20% of restaurants won't ever come back. I don't think it's necessarily going to be because people are cooking at home. I think it's just that, the financial wreckage of this thing is going to collect a bunch of them that just aren't going to be able to continue. I think people there's going to be a big pent up demand for people to go out and do things once it's safe to do so. So I don't think that is necessarily dead forever. But some of that might depend on the economy, right? We're headed toward a recession. A lot of people believe generally during the recession, consumers don't eat out as much as they do. So some of these habits might be a little sticky.
Well, and like, I have a friend who, she was a little bit leery of ordering online or for delivery from a restaurant. And like, I just told her, if you don't do it now, they're never going to come back and you'll be stuck making dinner forever.
Exactly.
She very quickly ordered in the very next day. So I'm like, you know, I think it's just a matter of people are missing those times where they can take a break from the kitchen and maybe just go out and just relax a little bit. So I think we'll probably revert back, as long as John alluded to, we still have jobs, we still have money to do that.
And we still have restaurants to patronize. I mean, that's the big thing, is what's going to be available, what's going to resurrect. And I would think, Phil, to answer for my part, I that is a definite fuzzy crystal ball. And I think John said it best with the economy having a lot to do with it. I do really think this lingering pattern of these things being closed is going to give people a chance to really reevaluate their budgets and to say, I was able to save X amount of money by avoiding this and eating in more. And, you know, but I think the more interesting thing of the eating component is going to pertain to what becomes of salad bars and hot bars and that kind of thing. So when you guys were all talking, I was actually thinking, will we see an upstart of from another concept? If salad bars go away, will there be sort of a meal kit business that people can go in and, you know, instead of buying a meal kit, really pick components behind glass? So maybe this will give rise to some innovative concepts around the next corner, something like that. But I really think that the bars are going to go away, the self-service bars. And the self-service component of grocery stores, we can't say enough of how important that is, both profitably as well as labor savings. But bars, to me, are going to be like what I'm going to be watching most carefully.
And with that, Meg, what's up for Thursday's broadcast?
So Thursday, we are going to take a look at a story that our colleague, senior editor Jenn Strailey, is working on, which pertains to how retailers are handling store conditions post COVID-19 outbreaks among their associates. There's no real federal mandate for if they should close their stores or open them. So we're going to take a look at that and speak to a bunch of folks from around the trade as well as some experts. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at on Thursday, and hopefully opening it up to some live questions.
Exactly. So don't forget, you can always tune in on Facebook Live and on Winsight Grocery Business and on Supermarket Guru to view our past episodes. And we will be back here at 12:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 Pacific Time on Thursday. And until then, stay safe.
Thank you.